Well, Coach, I kind of think it's the burning question of the hour. You had a chance to look at the
juice, guys. I appreciate you know it is. Coach Hicks gave it to Kenny Worthy. Kenny's been phenomenal, Jamie. Coach Coos gave it to Durham Harris. He's been silently just really great. If you're a snapper and you don't know his name, that's exactly where we want him to be. And, of course, Dean Janikowski gave it to Nick Haber. So that's exactly what you're talking about, right?
I thought Juice was done after fall camp. So
you know, we're in fall camp cleanup mode right now as we get into a couple practices at Texas Tech. But after a long 8 months, fierce competition, talked to both of those guys yesterday. We're going to name John Mateer the starting quarterback at Washington State. I think both of them handled it the way I would expect. Okay, Zevy's a competitor. You know, his strengths were the experience, the way he throws different level balls, his leadership qualities. But John's intangible pieces, what he can do with his feet, what he can do off script, his big arm. And I think more importantly, John is going to get exponentially better. He will be. Okay, the John Mateer that you see game one, every time he's out there, you know, going through, you know, Giesa Field and what we're going to ask him to do, he's going to get so much better week to week. Excited about him leading our team. And just like any other position, I told him, you know, there's an expectation level of performance. Okay, and Zevy will be ready when and if called upon. And I just really appreciate his character and how much both of them have put into this.
For John, when it comes to kind of the ultimate decision, was there one or two things that maybe just really stood out in terms of his athleticism and so on?
Well, that's the biggest thing I told him. You know, both of them didn't finish well on Saturday when we watched it. You know, so it was the whole 8 months, and it was the upside that John brings. I think his accuracy with the deep pass was really evident in week 2. He's very confident that we need that, and I think when things break down, that's the mark of a great quarterback, and I think John has that in him. Now he's got to play controlled. He's got to be better at not turning over the football. I think both of them, you know, we had 40 interceptions through 15 practices at camp, and that's not all those two guys, but we need to be better in those areas. But I think, like I said, every time John's out there, he's going to get better and better. I'm very convicted in this decision. This wasn't a straw poll. This wasn't asking every coach what they thought. This was me and Coach Arbuckle sitting down and doing what's best for the Cougs, and we believe that's what we did.
Non-quarterback question for you. It just seems, especially the last few days, Trey Lechner's really come on strong.
Yeah.
I know you obviously have some returners in that tight end room, but it seems like maybe is there going to be a role for him, or what does his outlook look like for 2024?
Yeah, and we talked about it yesterday in the staff meeting. I think Trey Lechner is one of those guys that can carve out a 5 to 10 play, you know, role within our offense. I think he's one of our best perimeter blockers. And then you get him matched up on a tight end. He showed it the other night. He won on the 7. He was open again later in the scrimmage. We just didn't go to him. Excited about what Trey has brought, but we just need that consistency to show through, you know, and that's the mark of a young guy that's getting better.
How much did John's knowledge of the playbook, just having been here for 2 years, kind of factor into this?
I think some. I think when you really go back to the spring, he had a huge advantage. But really, even talking to Zev, throughout the summer and fall camp, we really felt like they were on an equal playing field to really show what they could do. So it really didn't come down to that as much as, just the upside of John, and we feel he's best for our offense.
A couple guys asked you about being out. Tyson Durant and Chris Barnes, any update on them?
Yeah, we got most of the guys back today, and we're really shooting our first Portland State real practice will be Thursday. So I think you'll see all those guys, Jamori Colson, just a lot of kind of nicks and bruises from fall camp, so we'll get those guys ready, and we'll be really pretty much at full capacity besides Carlos and Lily come Thursday.
When did you inform John of your decision, and what was his reaction?
We talked on Sunday. I met with both of them separately. I told the team this morning, and then obviously you guys today. John's excited. I think when you achieve something you work so hard for, but he knows this is just the beginning. He's got to go out there and perform. He's got to go out there and do what we all expect him to do and lead this football team. And I told the team this morning that this isn't something we take lightly. Everyone's going to rally around John. I think everyone knows where we were kind of at and making a big decision. So he was excited, and I think, like I said, the character traits of Zevi, he was exactly who he said he was going to be. And I thought that was impressive for that kid. Just really appreciative to him. And like I said, he's going to be ready if his number's called. And I think that's the mark of a really mature competitor.
We've talked to some folks about John's leadership style, and we heard that he's not afraid to to tell people what they need to hear. How important is that for a team leader?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing I'll work with personally with John. Just to make sure that he's being authentic to himself. his competitiveness shows in everything that he does. And I think it's channeling that fire, that energy, that passion when he gets out on the field. But I love a quarterback that's going to call somebody up a little bit. Say, hey, we're not meeting the standard today, but to do that, you got to live it and you got to bring it every day. And I think that's what I told John. The two most good job, Bobby. The two most kind of, talked about people in our program are going to be me and him, and we accept that responsibility. And the spotlight's on us and everything that we do. We got to own that. We'll take, all the blame when things go bad, and we'll give all the credit when things go well. So he's ready for that moment, and he's prepared.
Was it neck and neck up until the scrimmage on Saturday, or was one guy?
I don't. I'm not going to go through our whole process, but we've had conversations here that it just it started to separate in our mind probably week 2 of fall camp. I think that's when Zev probably pressed a little bit, and John's, just kind of deep ball and just what he could do with different things kind of came to light. But it was a close battle, and that's exactly what we thought it would be.
Obviously, the work isn't done for him now, but
Yeah.
when you told John and when he kind of got the news that he had won the position battle, did you feel any sense of relief from him a little bit? Maybe not worrying so much?
I think when you're a competitor, you expect to hear that. I thought John expected to hear that answer because he put everything into it, and I don't consider that a bad thing. I think at quarterback, you got to have that type of competitiveness. You got to have that type of conviction in yourself and your talents. And John's a very confident guy, and I appreciate that about him. So I think he handled it exactly the way, I expected him to. A lot of excitement, should be a lot of joy. I mean, when you put that much hard work into something, it should be a big deal.
And then just for the greater team at large, how much does their life change, their schedule change now that classes are here?
Well, we talked about it. You got to start getting on routine. First day of classes, but I told them we're not on routine yet. Obviously, we're practicing in the afternoon to get some things installed for tech and what we wanted to accomplish in these practices, make sure these guys are alert. We had an academic meeting this morning to make sure everybody was on the same page. But it's not someone else's job to create your routine to be successful. That's the big message. That's your job, okay? How you show up before practice, how you show up to class, the amount of time you're putting in extra now. This isn't fall camp. We get you for 20 hours, but that's the bare minimum if we want to do what we want to do this season.
You mentioned it was obviously the decision you made was from the body of work, but how many nights did you lose sleep going back and forth in your head on such an important decision for the starting quarterback job?
You know what? I'll go the other way. I was really excited about it because I knew we had 2 guys that were really capable. And I think to be in that position as a head coach, I think is very rare, especially when you dip yourself into the portal, or you lose someone that you didn't quite expect or not expect like Cam. So I was more excited about it. I knew it was going to be a big decision. But that's why they put me in the seat too. I got to make those deals what's best for the Cougs always, and I think that's what we did.
And what about the job the rest of the offense has done throughout camp, getting chemistry with 2 different guys when they didn't necessarily know who was going to be the guy?
Yeah, I think it was hard on everybody, and that's where I kind of went to. We had to make this decision now to give a gelling point, to get the receivers on the same page, to get the O-line working in unison. Because sometimes you could see lapse in execution because we were working with so many different guys. And John and Zevi were different in their great individual ways. So I think it had to happen now. And I think hopefully it can be a relief to them where they know so they can focus on, getting that feel for one guy and how they throw the ball and how that fits in with their strengths.
You've been around John ever since he stepped foot on campus here. How does John Mateer, starting quarterback of the Washington State Cougars, compare to that 18-year-old kid that first stepped into your program?
We'll go all the way back to recruiting John. I got the head job, and we didn't, maybe 3 years ago seems like forever, but we found John in January. He was going to go to an FCS program. And we believed in John. I give Eric Morris tons of credit in that decision. He's the one that saw him work out. But the more I got to know John, he was the right guy. He really was. And then the moment he got here, he'd be out going through plays by himself at night, 10 p.m. when I was leaving the office. And I'm like, who's down there in the dark? It's John Mateer. And those are the days that lead to these big moments. So I think it's really cool to see a guy wait his turn. And he didn't know if Cam was going to leave, and he was going to wait his turn, and he was ready for that moment. So he's learned a lot of really good football, and I'm really excited for him.
And just overall, how much do you believe having Zevi here push him every day helped him?
10 years from now, and John's going to have tons of success. And I think John has a lot of qualities to play at a next level, and we'll talk about that long down the line. But he'll thank Zevi. Zevi came in here, pushed them, challenged them, showed them what leadership is. Just really cool to see their dynamic on and off the field. They know they were competing, but I think John owes a lot to Zevi's professionalism to come in here and just work. And the biggest thing Zevi said to me after it was all said and done is like, Coach, I just appreciate that this was a fair shot. He never felt he got slighted. He knew we gave everyone the same opportunity to prove they can do it. And at this moment, it's John. All right, thank you guys. Go Cougs.